6 weeks ago, or whenever it was, 6 or 7 weeks ago, I didn't even know where Bledisloe Wharf was. Right? I've sailed on that harbour all my life. I've always gone past the port, and I've always liked the port. I like cranes, and I like industrial things. I like big ships, and I like all that. Never had a problem with the port. 6 weeks later, especially after speaking with Shane, I see this enormous opportunity for Auckland, and I equate both the economic development and the aesthetic development and the social development of the viaduct area, and what a great asset that has become. It's gone from a place where the port just dumped logs and a few fishing boats to something which, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people use every year. And I see that, if we could extend that right along the waterfront, that would transform Auckland, not only aesthetically, environmentally and socially, but economically as well. So I see it as a great opportunity. And I said that to the Mayor the other day. I said, this is a great opportunity we have. But I think it just went straight over his head.
There was no response?
Well, there wasn't really any response at all. Well, no, there was a response. The following day, he cast a vote in favour of adding another 100 metres of concrete into the harbour. And
his one-fingered response.
Not only his one-fingered response, but his compromise, which is what they're calling it, is literally compromising a key asset of Auckland. Now, I don't go out to the Waitakeris that much. That is a key asset of Auckland. I don't go on volcanoes that much. That's a key asset of Auckland. I don't go out to East Tamaki, that whole sort of light industrial area, that much. That is a key asset of Auckland. So anything that happens in East Tamaki or South Auckland that negatively impacts on Auckland as a whole affects us all. So damaging a key asset does affect us all in the long term.
Well, it's the sum of the parts. So in my day job, I do a lot of tourism and major event work, and tourism in particular. I wrote Auckland's tourism strategy, and I wrote their major event strategy as well. And through the course of the research process around tourism, we asked the question, what are the things that are special about Auckland or world class about Auckland that other people can't replicate? And the Gulf, the harbour and Gulf Islands came to the top as the most prominent thing, the key asset that we have from a visitor/tourism perspective. And we'd never positioned our brand around that before. But if you look at most of the branding now that goes out domestically and internationally to people that we want to come to our city, will feature the harbour and the Gulf Islands. And that was identified as the jewel in the crown for Auckland, along with the rainforests and the wine regions and the beaches and everything else. It's the sum of the parts. But that was the jewel in the crown. And here we are throwing concrete into something we've identified as being part of our economic future, part of our social future, but importantly part of our economic future. Tourism is worth around $4 billion to the economy each year. So we're effectively putting one finger up that industry and saying, look, we promote ourselves on the basis of this asset, we're just going to soil this asset now. So, it's a bit of, I'm confused as to what we actually believe in as a city.
So the key concern is around Ferguson and the container/cargo area.
You said Ferguson, do you mean Bledisloe?
Sorry, Bledisloe and Ferguson's running right around the container terminal.
Yeah, Ferguson's a container.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got B1 and B2, the Bledisloe Wharf extensions.
It's actually B2 and B3.
B2 and B3, that's right. B2 and B3, but Ferguson is the big land area. I mean, the container terminal area. That's really what you would like to see relieved of its current.
Well, that would be if you were going to start on a redevelopment of the site. That's where you start.
Right.
That is the prime land.
So, working westwards then, Queen's Wharf and perhaps around currently where the oil terminal is around.
You mean the tank farm?
The tank farm, yeah.
But that's
Wynyard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those areas would you accept those areas as being where we'd park the tourist ships?
Oh, the thing about the tourist ships, there are a range of options. They can extend Cook. You can, if you take out Marsden, you've doubled the size of Bledisloe. You've got Wynyard. The draft at the end of Wynyard is actually 2 metres deeper than the end of Bledisloe. Obviously, again, I don't know the exact drafts and how much it would cost to dredge these, but those options should be on the table and they should be discussed seriously and not dismissed out of hand with some random figure like $100 million to take out a small amount of land.
It's worth noting that that the largest cruise ships in the world have visited us already. So the idea that suddenly next year they're not going to because these extensions don't go ahead is an absolute nonsense. We've accommodated them already. They've been, they were fine, they left, and they'll come back again. Everything says that they're already booked in for the next season, a couple of the big ones. So if they get bigger and bigger, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But in my view, that's a red herring. They're sort of trying to bundle that issue in to get people more outraged about this thing or more in their favour, and I just don't think. I think it's a non-issue.
Well, I've been told by a source who has done some polling on the issue that Aucklanders are sort of fine about the wharf being used for cruise ships, but not cargo ships. I haven't said this already, have I?
No.
Okay. So I've been told by a source that they've done their own polling and saying Aucklanders are fine on the Bledisloe Wharf being used for cruise ships, but they're not happy about it being used for cargo ships. The only thing that Ports of Auckland talk about now is cruise ships. And we have to remind ourselves, and Ports of Auckland, that Bledisloe Wharf and the extensions are for multi-cargo use, which is cars, trucks, caravans, anything that doesn't fit into a container. Their primary use is not for cruise ships. So again, we've got an example of disingenuous information coming from the ports to suit their arguments as their arguments develop.
Yeah, and there are many examples of cities, most cities in fact, who separate their cruise function from their cargo function. In fact, most cities around the world have a dedicated cruise terminal with not a container port in sight.
And that's really what we need, isn't it? I mean, we need a dedicated.
Well, we're all what we're talking about is in terms of the further, the exciting development of that prime real estate is not an exclusion of cruise ships. Cruise ships are a no-brainer. They are actually an export industry in a sense because they bring in cold, hard foreign currency right into your CBD and significant amounts of it. And not only that, but as I was pointing out to you before, it's something Aucklanders want. There's something exciting. I was down in Queen's Wharf when a ship was leaving, and there were hundreds of people there just to see the ship leave. They're a lot prettier aesthetically than the boring old cargo ship. So they do actually add to the overall value of the city.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Pete Montgomery's speech yesterday, talking about that whole area of communications. He was the only one that went down to the open session with the ports directors. And some of the things that he was challenging there, pretty basic stuff. I wondered, how do you guys propose to channel in to Ports of Auckland?
To channel into them, to have a conversation with them. Well, the key thing to realise is that the people who are really making the decision now are the council. So they are the actual owners of Ports of Auckland through the ASIL company. So the vote the other day has determined that they would go for this of compromising the Waitemata Harbour by only having one wharf rather than two. So these are the people who are making the decisions.
But Mike Lee was at pains to explain at that vote that the board of directors of Ports of Auckland were not singing from the same song sheet, and they were.
You mean individually?
Yeah, apparently
so
there's
disconsent.
Absolutely, especially between Graham Hawkins, the chair, and the council. And some of the directors. There was quite a certain amount of dissent. I just wondered whether that's an opportunity for...
That could be an opportunity. I hadn't heard that. So that could be an opportunity.
I imagine those were those who love Auckland with an environmental and social conscience would probably be quite troubled by sitting on a board making those sorts of decisions.
Absolutely, yeah. I just think it's a powder keg.
I never thought of it like that. I've always thought of them as a unified group.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I'll leave it there.
Brilliant.
There's plenty for
Right.
us to play with. Thank you.